Hey fam, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading The Sound of Gravel. Do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Also, there is a poll on my community page. I don't know how long it's going to be up there because I've never done a poll before and I don't know if they expire after a certain time. But I have four different books up there that have been suggested in recent videos or over the past couple of months. And I want you guys to pick what's next so I know what to order. So please, if you get a chance, go to the community tab and select one of the four books, okay? Thanks. So let's go ahead and get into The Sound of Gravel. Let's hope that there doesn't have to be that, warning sign. Let's get into it. Chapter 34. I didn't think it would be Christmas before I saw Matt again, much less a white Christmas. For the first time in my childhood, the colony's dormant fields were blanketed in a thin layer of snow, as far as the eye could see, and the peaks of the Blue Mountains were capped in white. Mom put up a fake tree that she bought at a yard sale the previous summer, one missing so many limbs that it looked like something Charlie Brown might have chosen. Still, we dressed up like the dilapidated thing as best as we could. With popsicle sticks and yarn, long ropes of popcorn I strung together with needle and thread, and a few strands of tiny lights that blinked in the living room window. And of course, Mom had picked up a few secondhand re-gifts in El Paso the week before. I think that my favorite memory of Christmas, y'all put your favorite memory down below. I know this is off topic, but just, go with me here. I think my favorite memory of Christmas was Christmas at my grandmother's. My mom never celebrated Christmas growing up. Like, we didn't have the tree and all that other stuff. So for me, I got to experience Christmas while I was at my dad's mom's home. And Christmas there was always this big to-do. Like, there were stockings along the fireplace and there was the tree. And my grandmother would do the cookies and stuff like that. And we'd bake them together and leave them out. And even one chair, Santa Claus broke the chair, which we found out later it wasn't Santa Claus, it was my aunt. But we thought it was Santa Claus because he got too full from, eating our cookies. Anyways, so whenever my grandmother has never done a fake tree. It's always a real tree. And whenever she put up the tree, at some point, we would hear this sound that was like a bird. And it was like random times, like it wasn't constant. It would just go off, do, and then it would stop. And then maybe like 20 minutes later, you might hear it again. So we thought, the naive, gullible young children that we were, that it was a real bird of the tree. And for the longest time, we're like, the bird is back, the bird is back. And it was like every year a thing. You guys, it was not until I had my own child and I was helping with the tree that I realized where the sound came from. My grandmother had this one particular ornament that you couldn't even tell because it looks like a regular ornament. There's not anything on it that would identify that it's anything else, but it made the bird sound. So that was one of my, my memories. I miss my grandmother, y'all. But that was one of my, really, really good memories of Christmas. And, share yours if you want to. But back to the book. Sorry, I'm off topic. I just, made me think of that. Though it was another lean Christmas, something was different about it. Something besides the snow. The anger I'd harbored towards Mom began to decline with the temperature. I still couldn't understand how she could remain married to a man such as Lane. But I also began to appreciate and admire her ability to create something out of nothing. See, this is her being much bigger than I think that I could be. Because if I had told my mother the things that she had told her mother, and if my mother had been questioning me and holding court in the car the way that her mom was, I think that my resentment for my mother would be really, really high, to the point where I wouldn't even want to live with my mom. I would want to go with my grandparents, where it's much more comfortable and you don't have to deal with that stuff, right? And I wondered about her. Just weeks away from delivering her 10th child, the toll of all her previous pregnancies seemed written on her face. She suffered agonizing migraine headaches that would keep her up all night. Some days she stayed in bed until lunchtime and took naps in a feeble attempt to restore her energy. She bore the burden alone, with laying gone for weeks or even months at a time. I mean, not to say it this way, but nobody told her to keep having kids, number one. Number two, Lane didn't really take much of the burden off. It wasn't like he was providing finances or anything like that. So how did he lighten her load? To me, it sounds like the person who's lightening her load is Ruth, because Ruth is the one that helps take care of the kids and her other siblings. So, okay. That fall, I had enrolled in secretarial classes offered by a local school, but as the holidays approached, Mom asked me to withdraw. Of course she did, because you got to be at home and you got to help her. All Ruthie really needs to know about life, she can learn at home and in church, she told the schoolmaster. A young girl doesn't need more than that to find a good man and raise a family. The way that her mother actually believes this crap, I just can't see myself as a parent after suffering like that, wanting the same thing for my kid. I would hope that I would want something different. Now, hearing that, it's just, ugh. If that was the case, the schoolmaster replied, then why did you enroll her in the first place? Mom's face and reaction looked as if she just bit into a lemon. I can't take care of my family by myself. I need her help at home, she said as she picked up her purse and left. Just keep your kids bound. And Ruth is going to accept it because this is all Ruth knows. I didn't resent my mom's decision. I was far behind in my schoolwork, having already missed several days because of Mom's health, and the shorthand and typing classes were all taught in Spanish by an old lady with a cane who perpetually sneered at me. Even before she realized how little I knew of the language, she would shriek at me. I don't know how to say this. Chapucera. Cheater. Every time I leaned over to ask a classmate what the woman was talking about. Oh, she felt like she was a cheater because she was asking questions. So I returned home to learn more about the domestic arts. Each morning, after telling Aaron to fire up the barrel heater, I prepared the milk for everyone's breakfast by skimming the cream off the top and adding it to a container until I collected enough for butter, which I made in the blender. Our home was well run, it seemed to me, and no homework was required. Hey, Ruthie, can we go outside and play in the snow? Micah asked the day before Christmas in his raspy early morning voice. You guys need to eat breakfast and get ready for the day first, I smiled as I cut thick, round slices of bread on an old wooden cutting board, spreading raw honey over the top. I plopped a slice into each of the 5 plastic bowls and covered them with milk. Y'all, I'm not a milk person, so when I hear that... Micah scraped the chair against the cold cement floor and took a seat, and the others swiftly followed. I turned a 10-quart saucepan over and placed it on one of the chairs for Leah, who was 18 months old and proving to indeed be just as stubborn as her namesake, Grandpa Leo. She refused to sit in a high chair or do most anything else I asked of her. The kids ate quickly and dressed themselves for snow play, all except Leah, of course, whose clothes were in Mom's bedroom. Mom was still asleep, her belly swollen under a wine-red comforter and her head propped crookedly on pillows up against the stucco wall. We tiptoed in. Morning, Mom rasped. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes that made her skin look even paler than usual. Did the kids all get something to eat? Yeah, I said. They're getting dressed for the snow now. I laid Leah down on the bed. changed her diaper, and wrestled her into a pair of red corduroy pants, a long-sleeve pink blouse, lace-trimmed socks, and a tiny yellow rain boots covered in rubber ducks. As I carried Leah out of the room, I saw a hint of a smile on Mom's face. Maybe she's feeling better, I thought. Back in the kitchen, Micah and Elena were raring to go, having dressed themselves in gloves, jackets, and scarves. Oh gosh, let me wipe your faces, I said to the pair who both had honey from ear to ear and sleep still firmly crusted in their eyes. I ran a rag under water and mopped their freckled faces. Would you please? That's too hard, Micah said, pulling my hand away. In addition to a stutter, Micah had an old soul's way of speaking. He was formal and articulate without trying to be, and I couldn't help but laugh when he asked me questions. Could we go outside now, please? I nodded at them both. A smile spread across their half-clean faces, revealing mouths full of corn kernel-shaped teeth. I ran my fingers through their tangled hair in lieu of combing it, and then they darted past me and out the kitchen door, smiling the whole way. I picked up Leah and followed them outside into the fresh, cold air. The sky was a mass of thick gray clouds. The two kids giggled as they crunched happily in the paper-thin layer of snow. With Leah in my arms, I watched for a few minutes as Micah explained to Elena how to make a snowball, his voice professional and authoritative. He then demonstrated by rolling a ball of pebbles and dirt and dried twigs and a few flakes of snow together. Elena seemed impressed, wanted it for herself, and began chasing Micah all over the yard to get it. In his search for what little snow remained, Micah made his way to the thick piles that rested near one of the fences on the edge of the yard. Micah, please stay away from the fence, I warned. Those fences has always been a mystery to me. Originally just a way to keep animals in or out, Lane had the idea to use them to ferry electricity from one part of his farm to another. So for several years, miles of rubber black tubes encasing electrical wiring ran along the fences. It was typical Lane, ugly but functional. Recently, Lane decided to bury the tubes beneath the fences, but he hadn't done it for appearance sake. He had to bury them, Mom said. When I asked, one of the wives got exposed somehow and a horse nicked itself with its hoof. Later, I discovered that the horse had been electrocuted, its lifeless body discovered near the fence. Lane never did anything right. We know that. At least Irene was honest about that. Lane caused a lot of issues and a lot of tragedy. And hearing that this poor horse is gone because of Lane's inability to properly install something and to complete a task is ridiculous. But this is Lane we're talking about, so I'm not surprised. Lane's electrical skills were so awful you almost wanted to laugh. Matt's here, Micah and Elena yelled in unison as they ran excitedly to the driveway. My brother emerged from his truck and hugged both of them at the same time, one under each arm. Matt, what's in the bag? Stuttered Micah, seeing the large black garbage bag his brother was carrying. What's inside, Matt? Elena chirped in echo. Not yet, he laughed, giving me a sideways hug. Mom has to help me wrap the presents first. Hello, everybody, Matt boomed as we entered the quiet house. But a long while passed before we heard the shuffling of house slippers, and Mom appeared in the living room doorway. She looked small and weak, although she was smiling broadly. Matt looked alarmed as he approached her and wrapped her in a tight embrace. That tree looks worse than Charlie Brown's, Matt said with a chuckle. Oh, come on now, Mom smiled and then winced. Her arm reached for her swollen belly as if she felt a sudden stomach pain. Count your blessings. At least we have a tree this year. She sat on the corner of the couch and let out a long breath. The sound of Micah and Elena laughing outside caught Matt's attention, and he pulled out his Kodak 110 camera and went to the window. Well, look at this, he said. The two kids had built a couple of snow people in front of the yard, a large one that wore Elena's pink scarf and a smaller one beside it. It's Mom with one of her kids. I don't think so, she laughed. Look, Ruthie, he said. I saw two figures covered in mud, twigs, and tiny rocks, snow people in name only, a pair of creatures who looked as if they were having one hell of a day. That's them, all right. By dinner time, Mom had perked up a bit and was ready to hear about Matt's love life. How are things going with Maria? I stared down at Leah, who was asleep in my lap. Matt chewed on his thumbnail. Good. They're going real good. Mom was silent for a moment, as if she was thinking carefully. Matt, she finally said, waiting to continue till he looked at her. If you marry Maria, you're gonna have a hard time living polygamy. She's got a jealous streak just like her mother. She'll give you hell when you try to take another wife. Interesting that she has so much to say about Maria's mom. But wasn't it Kathy who went and uprooted her kids and had to hurry up and get back to their place because she found out about Lane marrying Irene? Wasn't it Kathy who was crying and doing all that other stuff? So it seems like she can see that jealous streak in Maria's mom, but she can't see it in herself. Matt pretended he hadn't heard Mom and reached inside his back pocket to pull out a Velcro wallet with a photo of him and Maria taken at someone's wedding. Isn't she the most beautiful girl you've ever seen? Mom reluctantly took the wallet and studied the photo a moment. Maria has always been a striking girl, Matt. But you have to think about the rest of your life, the families you want to bring into this world. Who says he wants to be a polygamist? Now, I don't know whether or not he is, but who says he wants to be a polygamist? And how is it that you're so opinionated about the type of woman Matt should have when you're not opinionated about the type of woman that you brought into the house for your children? That you're not opinionated about this man who likes little pretty girls that aren't his? I'm just saying. I almost groaned. What about love and happiness? I wondered as Mom handed me the wallet. I placed it gently on Leah's sleeping body. In the photo, Maria was in pink, puffy-sleeved, over-the-top satin bridesmaid dress, her lipstick, eyeshadow, and blush in the exact same shade. Matt was in a suit and tie and had his arm around Maria. Her head rested against his chest. Their smiles looked goofy, but they obviously adored each other. I handed the wallet back to Matt and glanced at Mom briefly. I wondered how she felt seeing the loving embrace, seeing the two of them express the kind of affection I never saw between her and Lane. She looks good, I offered, but then any girl would look good next to you, Matt. Mom snickered. Matt smiled and shook his head. Very funny. You are one ugly son of a gun, I laughed. You know what? You know that? Sorry. I laughed. You know that. It's just because I can't wear all that makeup like your girls. He slipped the wallet back into his pocket. I thought that humor might set the conversation on a different track. It didn't. Matt, Mom went on, I'm not saying that you shouldn't love Maria or that she's not a good person. I just think you should think seriously about whether she's going to let you live by the laws your dad taught. I hear you, Mom. Matt stood up. I'm just not sure I want to live plural marriage. Good for you, Matt. And I hope he doesn't. But good for you, Matt, in saying that. Because here she is, like, saying this. And it's real convenient that you said the laws that your father taught. Like, that's supposed to pull him in to want this. When they've witnessed the things that you've gone through in plural marriage. Why would you say that? Mom seemed shocked. Girl, what you shocked for, Kathy? What you shocked for? I couldn't believe that it hadn't occurred to her that her own experience with plural marriage might be the reason. What? Matt asked. I might not want to live plural marriage. Mom mocked with a hint of disbelief and sarcasm. Matt, what have you been taught your whole life? She pushed her glasses back up her nose. Polygamy is one of our Heavenly Father's most important laws. If you don't live his laws and build families in his name, your life on earth will be meaningless. I looked around the room and back at Mom's tired face, her hair still sticking up from the spot where her head had rested for so many hours. Didn't she see what the life had done to her? I felt devastated for her. She was trapped by her own beliefs as I had been by Lane. Matt took in a deep breath and exhaled through his response. Mom, we're not planning on getting married yet. Who knows? She might not even want to marry me. He looked at me. That's true, I said. We both tried to smile. Mom's migraines finally subsided on Christmas Day, which was the best present she could have received, save one. While she appreciated the new robe, house slippers, and gift set of jellies and jams Matt gave her, her reaction to his card was what really struck me. She cried the first time she read it, then read it a second time aloud, breaking down again. In language simple and honest, Matt thanked her for having been a kind mother, saying that although he knew San Diego had been the right choice for him, he missed her very much and loved her very much, even if he never told her so. Mom's tears that day were joyful, like the tears she cried when we sang happy birthday to her each year. I cried too, but only much later, when I realized how little she had asked of the world and how even that had been too much for the world to give. Her mother's so ingrained in this thing and really, really believes what she's saying. But for her to be so deep in it, and for her to not have been born in it, and for her parents not to believe in it, it just goes to show you how they're able to get people who were basically converted into this thing to believe. Chapter 35. In mid-January, once again, Mom went to the hospital in Casas to deliver her 10th baby. She called a family meeting to discuss what we should name the child. Finding a name we liked that someone in our enormous family hadn't already taken was so difficult that a group effort was required. Ever since I'd first seen the show when we lived in California, I had been a fan of General Hospital. Holly was one of my favorite characters, so I suggested Mom name the baby after her. Everyone agreed. Holly was born on January 20th, 1987, 20 years after Mom gave birth to Audrey, her first child. Holly's skin was a translucent white and smooth as china. Her lips a bright red, her eyes blue, surrounded by long, dark lashes. Everyone agreed that Holly looked just like Mary, and for some weeks I was terrified that the resemblance might be too strong and Holly would be another sickly child. Oh, that's sad. That's a lot. She really went through a lot, and she probably needed therapy and things of that nature based on the stuff that she went through with Lane and from the losses of her sisters. That's a lot. And I know one of them is still alive. I'm just talking about, her not being in the home. One day, however, while carrying her in my arms, I felt a warm sensation come over me, a feeling of hope. From that moment, I knew she would be a healthy baby, and I was right. I didn't feel the same sense of hope when I saw Mom. She returned home just one day after the birth, once again had lost a lot of blood during delivery. She was weak and felt terrible. Over a few weeks, her vigor returned, and she agreed to let me travel to San Diego to work with Matt for a little while. I'm surprised. He drove us around to different construction sites all over the city. I helped by mixing spackle with water in 5-gallon plastic paint buckets and smearing it with a 6-inch putty knife on bare sheetrock around plastic light sockets. It was hard work, and my body hurt when I woke up early every morning, but it paid me $25 a day, and I liked having the money to spend on the movies and going out for pizza. Matt lived in Imperial Beach, closer to Tijuana than San Diego. His home was a single wide in a small trailer park off a busy street. Even though it reminded me of living in El Paso, the place had its advantages. First, it was within walking distance to the beach. Second, it was parked hundreds of miles north of LeBaron. The third perk overshadowed the other two. Living with Matt, I had access to a working telephone. The first people I wanted to call were Grandpa and Grandma. Mom hadn't taken us to visit her sisters in years. They occasionally wrote her letters, which Mom would read with tears running down her cheeks. My aunts wrote that Mom was doing wrong by staying in polygamy and having so many kids she and Lane couldn't afford to take care of. Mom felt hurt by her sister's disapproval, but she was relieved that Grandma and Grandpa had given up trying to change her mind about her religion. We visited them and Audrey at least once a year, usually during the summer when my younger brothers weren't in school. I hadn't seen my grandparents or talked to them since the previous summer, so one of the first things I wanted to do from San Diego was to surprise them with a phone call. Hearing my voice usually made Grandma excited, but not that night. As soon as she picked up the phone, I knew something was wrong. Oh no. We were doing so good. Grandpa passed away about 2 weeks ago, she said in a quivering voice. He was sick a long time. I almost dropped the receiver. Oh, Grandma, I'm so sorry. Why didn't someone call us and tell us? I didn't want your mom to drive all the way up here on these icy roads with all her kids. But was as far as I got. I had been at the point of saying the family was wrong not to tell us, that everyone had deserved a chance to say goodbye to Grandpa, especially Mom. But Grandma's voice was so shaky and weak, I couldn't. I hung up, and my heart was filled with sadness and longing for Grandpa. I felt so grateful for the months we spent in his home in Strathmore, which were some of the happiest of my life. Later that evening, I sat staring at Matt's phone for some minutes before dialing Maudie's in LeBaron and leaving a message for Mom to call me back right away. She called back collect. I accepted the charges and delivered the sad news. The phone went silent. Mom, are you there? They didn't want us to be there? She sounded devastated, shocked. I reiterated what Grandma had said, that she'd been thinking of our safety, even though I knew it was a weak defense. No one called me Ruthie. No one called me to tell me about my dying daddy. Oh, wow. The tenor of her voice broke my heart. I know, Mom. I'm sorry. Well, I should go, she whispered. This call is going to cost Matt a lot. When are you coming home? I don't know. I don't think Matt plans on coming down anytime soon. Then see if you can get a ride with someone else from the church or take a bus. I need your help at home. Of course she does. Of course she does. It's like the girl finally is out. The girl finally is getting a little bit of freedom. The girl is finally making her own money. And here you are once again making her come back because she's a girl and you need her help. Like, at what point do you stop having kids and handle it yourself? I do not. And if this is your situation, I'm sorry, but I got to just call it the way that I see it, okay? I do not like when parents purposely have kids and they're already struggling to take care of their kids, and then they put it on their kids to take care of these kids. Right? It's jacked up because you're taking away from them. It's like I look at both of my parents come from really, really big families, right? They both have a whole bunch of siblings, right? And with that being said, did parentification happen at times? Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that it didn't. But not to this extent, not to the extent where these kids were pulled out of school and they couldn't further their education and they couldn't make money and all those other things. Did they have to help around the house? Yeah. Did they have to, go to walk however many miles to go to the market and things of that nature? Yes. Did they have to cook and clean sometimes? Yes. But they were at certain times allowed to be kids. And I just don't see this for them. I don't see them being allowed to be better. I see them being bound because of the decisions that their mother has made. And if I'm being honest, it's really, really getting on my nerves, because at every single chance when I feel like Ruthie has gotten a chance to be free and to be out there, then it's like, no, I'm going to snatch it away and go back home. Like, come on. Matt took me across the border to Tijuana the next morning. I took the bus back to LeBaron and arrived later that day. Mom and I hardly, excuse me, spoke when I got there. And for some reason, she couldn't look me in the eye. Sorry, y'all. I don't know why my fingers are tingling a little bit. Okay. All I could think was that hearing the news about Grandpa's death from me had somehow added insult to injury. I was angry and sad, not to mention exhausted from my travels. But that night, when I went to bed on the fold-out sofa in the living room, a bright, harsh moonlight kept me up for some time. Our living room window didn't have curtains, so I laid there tossing and turning in glare. As I finally started to drift off, I felt a familiar sensation of being watched. Sure enough, I opened my eyes to a figure looming over my bed. I flinched and sprang back, certain that it was Lane, but it was Mom, holding her head in her hands, sobbing. I sat up and asked what was wrong. After a moment, she stopped sobbing, sniffled, and looked at me. I'd seen the same face all day through in the moonlight. It didn't look as angry as it did desperate. What's wrong? I asked breathlessly. Are the kids okay? Ruthie. I watched Mom bow her head as if she lost her nerve, then slowly raise it again. Ruthie, I need to tell you that I'm so sorry. She began to cry, hard now, and the moonlight made her tears sparkle. You helped me so much with the kids, and I never appreciated it. It's okay. That's all I could think to say. I did feel unappreciated, but I didn't want Mom to feel upset about it. So even in this moment, she's still putting her mother's feelings before her own. I hope Ruthie has lived a great life after all of this. I really do. So she took off her glasses and wiped her eyes with a tissue. And I'm sorry, too, for everything that you've gone through. For everything. Everything Lane has done to you. She took a deep breath, desperate to calm herself. I do feel like things have gotten better. Don't you think so? You're supposed to be remorseful for what's happened to your daughter. You're supposed to feel sorry for what's happened to your daughter and the part that you played in it. Because once you found out, Kathy, you very much so played a part, right? And you're here in this moment, still making it about Lane. And if things have gotten better now that Lane isn't around, I'm like, come on, girl. Like, come on. 1,000 responses ran through my head, but none of them were right for the moment. Well, yeah, at least I didn't have to see him anymore. Mom took my hands in hers. I didn't know what to do. She started crying heavily, making me wonder how long she had been holding this in. I know he's very sorry for what he did. He's very, very sorry. Was she repeating this on purpose? Once for my sake and once for hers? Here's the thing. Don't sit here and try to pull me in and try to use your tears to make me feel like this man who used his tears and fooled you and made you feel like he was sorry mattered more than my tears when I was the one who was violated. I'll say it till the cows come home, or however that saying goes. When it comes to situations like this, when your children come to you and tell you that they have been violated, your job from that point on is to protect them. It's to remove them from those predatory people. It's to ensure that they're safe. It's to make sure that they realize and feel like you believe them and that they didn't do anything wrong and that it's not their fault and they didn't deserve this. At no point, even now in this moment where she's sitting here and she's apologizing to her child, in my opinion, does Kathy truly have remorse for what's happened to her daughter. And I could be wrong. Y'all tell me down below. It's just how I feel. I feel like for you to sit here and to continue to, in some ways, what you've done in the past, gaslight her into feeling like, oh, he's changed and he's really, really sorry. If he was really, really sorry, he wouldn't have done it to so many children. If he was really, really sorry, he wouldn't have done it over and over again. If he was really, really sorry, he wouldn't have tried to blame her and act like, oh, she didn't, say no enough and all those other things. So don't give her that he's really, really sorry thing. Kathy, we are on page 270, Kathy, and you still don't got it together. And I don't really feel like there's a whole bunch of book left, Kathy. What are you doing here, girl? I felt my arms reach around the top of her shoulders and pull her to me so I could rest my head on her neck. But before I could, she lunged forward and laid her head on my shoulder. I love you, Ruthie. I hadn't heard those words in a long time. In a long, long time, if ever. And now I was crying too. I couldn't be angry with her any longer. I felt sorry for her and I sensed her fragility. She wasn't some monster. She was just another human being who'd gone looking for her life and somewhere ended up on the wrong path. I love you too. Mom pulled away from me and smiled, patting my back and kissing my wet cheek before grasping the bed frame and pushing herself to her feet. She murmured goodnight, disappearing into the blackness, and left as mysteriously and abruptly as she come. But I didn't mind. I had become used to the dark. You guys, okay. I'm going to give y'all one more chapter because we're only doing 2 readings this week. This is chapter 36, and it's not long, so don't get too comfortable. I just looked and it's not a lot. Later that spring, Matt and Maria announced they would marry at the end of the summer. Mom clearly wasn't thrilled by the match and continued to warn Matt that Maria would never accept living polygamy. If the boy already told you that he wasn't sure if he wanted this, why do you have to keep saying that to him? Leave him alone. The wedding plans rekindled my friendship with Maria, and the two of us spent many hours over the next few months clipping wedding ideas from magazines. Whenever Mom wasn't around, we talked about her concerns. You know that my mom wants Matt to be a polygamist, right? I asked. Yeah, I know. But he says it's only a 50 chance that he'll live it. And I'm willing to take that chance. Besides, Maria winked, I'm pretty sure I can convince him not to get another wife. I didn't want to think about the things Maria might do to convince my brother of this, so I changed the subject. With summer came the usual LeBaron brand of excitement. Drinking and dancing in discotheques, cooling off in swimming holes and irrigation ditches, birthday and weekend parties and Anniversary celebrations. Added to the mix that summer were two additional blockbuster events, Matt and Maria's wedding and a big party Alejandra was throwing at her parents' house for her twin girls' birthdays. She had a second set of twins after Alex and Junior were born and was celebrating their second birthdays. All of Lane's wives and children were invited, but Mom was the only one who felt obligated to attend, seeing how her son was marrying Alejandra's daughter. Now, I would think that they should all go, but this just goes to show you how they lived separate lives. These sister wives weren't around each other often. No matter how hard Lane had tried to win her back, Susan had stuck by her decision to leave him, so she didn't hesitate to decline the invitation. Good for her. Marjorie, let's call her real name, Irene, Lane's fourth wife, was out of town visiting her family in the States. Even though Mom had been so upset with when Lane remarried Irene, I had come to like the last of her sister wives. Okay, so this is letting us know that she liked Irene, which makes me feel like there's some things that Irene did not know that was going on. Let's continue. Irene thought it important that Lane's wives be civil to one another. So not long after Holly was born, Irene visited our house to talk to Mom and to see the new baby. The moment she stepped through the door, she looked around wide-eyed. With all the builders we have in this town, why are you living in a place like this? Irene wondered aloud. She was the kind of person who would put her hands on her hips for dramatic effect and say, Kathy, I'm going to hire some of these young boys to fix this place up and then do exactly that. So this is the part where Irene had told us that she had, helped some of the wives in their homes and things of that nature. So although at various points I felt a certain way about Irene, it's clear to me that Irene didn't know what was going on. And I like the fact that she's mentioning Irene, even though she's not calling her that. Thank you guys for letting me know who she was. Because I didn't put two and two together. I like the fact that she's letting us know that this is what Irene did. Not a week after her visit, Irene had made brown and white checker curtains to hang in the windows in the kitchen, had its walls painted bright yellow, and hired a young man to construct a built-in closet out of sheetrock that Lane had bought for some project long ago and abandoned. Mom smiled for weeks every time she walked into her new kitchen. Even though people gossiped that Irene's kindness was payback for the pain she knew Lane's latest marriage had caused Mom, I didn't believe it. Because she didn't know, I don't think. Generosity seemed second nature to Irene. When she left to visit her family in the States, she promised to come back with more ideas on how to fix up our house. The day of Alejandra's party, Mom was tweezing her eyebrows in the mirror when she confided that she had gone to the doctor the day before. She missed her period. I was stunned. She was 38. Holly was just 5 months old. Mom, don't you think you should wait until you stop nursing before you get pregnant again? I said the words as gently as I could, but my irritation was obvious. We can barely afford to feed everyone in the family now. She put down her tweezers, gazed at me calmly, and matter-of-factly said, Ruthie, you just have to have faith. Faith that your mama's going to continue to give food stamps from the States to give y'all food. It's just ridiculous, y'all. It's ridiculous. You sitting here asking this girl to make sure that she stops schooling so she can help you, and you keep popping out babies. It's selfish. It's selfish. It's selfish. I'm going to say it one more time. It's selfish. No, you don't, I thought. You also need money and a husband who's not a deadbeat, but I didn't say anything. When you're doing what God wants you to do, life will always work out for the best. Don't worry, He will take care of us. She smiled warmly and turned back to her reflection. I smiled too, politely, as if I were in the presence of a woman whose cockamamie notions were too charming to be challenged. Cockamamie? I think it's a cockamamie. God wouldn't send us another baby if we weren't ready to take care of it. She adjusted her hair. I'm ready. Let's get the kids in the truck. Man, free will have you doing all types of crazy things. It will have y'all doing all types of crazy things. Like she keeps willingly getting pregnant. I'm sorry. Like, whatever. I was going to go too graphic. I'll leave it alone. Buenas tardes. Pasenle. Pasenle. Alejandra said with a forced grin when we arrived. She was in the midst of rolling out a tortilla and motioned us with her flower-colored hands. Buenas tardes, Mom blared in an exaggeratedly thick American accent, a clear signal to every Spanish speaker within earshot that she was not available for conversation. With 2-year-old Leo on my hip, I scanned the party already in full swing with ranchera music blaring. The women were decked out in their Sunday best, in nylons and pumps, looking as if they'd all chipped in for a single tube of red lipstick and then just passed it around. So I'm getting a picture of all these ladies with red lipstick on, even ones that may not look right wearing red lipstick. Like, contrary to popular belief, every now and then I'll put on, lipstick. I'm not putting on the rest of the stuff, but I'll put on a little bit of lipstick. And I've done certain reds on me. So I'm thinking like some of the reds probably look great on some people and not so great on others. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Where am I at? Through the window, I saw dozens of dark-haired children playing in a tiny backyard enclosed by barbed wire. And my platinum-headed brothers and sisters ran outside to join them. In Spanish, Alejandra told my mom that everyone was waiting for us outside. So we made our way to the backyard where we found Mexican men and women sitting in white plastic folding chairs. The only non-Mexican was my stepfather, who wore his trademark red polo shirt, tattered jeans, and a gleaming silver belt buckle. Lane stood conversing in Spanish with a few of the other guests, his large protruding stomach making him look as if it were the last trimester of his own pregnancy. The sight of him made me ill. I considered snatching Mom's keys and making a beeline from the party, but realized that as long as I stuck close to her, I was safe. It's the fact that she's constantly forced to be around this man. It bothers me. Whenever more than one wife was around, good manners kept Lane from paying much attention to either of them. It could cause conflict, he always said. A star-shaped piñata floated into the yard on the end of a rope held by Matt. Maria, who walked out with him, rushed up to me, hugging 2 bridal magazines close to her chest. Ruthie, I found the bridesmaid dress that I want, she yelled over the music, beaming. The color was royal blue, and the design included everything from puffy gathered sleeves to flower made from the same material at the sash. I was thrilled. Royal blue is my favorite color. I actually love any type of blues, but I'm already digging Maria for her choices here. We turned our attention to the piñata. A line of children from shortest to tallest was already forming, which put Elena second. When it was her turn, Maria's aunt blindfolded Elena with a red bandana, spun her around 3 times, then let her swing the stick. Matt and another man raised and lowered the piñata to confuse Elena, but she still managed to give it a better whack than a lot of the older kids who followed her. Did you see me hit it 2 times? She yelled to Mom and the rest of the audience. I saw it, Mom smiled back. Soon it was 5-year-old Micah's turn, and then the twins, Alex and Junior, who were 6. The 3 of them had become inseparable, always spending the night at each other's houses and riding bikes down gravel roads. Micah still with his training wheels. Hit it now, Micah, they yelled, as my brother swung wildly, missing the target by a mile. Both Alejandra's boys found this hysterical, while poor Micah looked hurt and humiliated. The stage was set for an older, heavyset boy to properly destroy the paper mache creation, and with one swing from him, candy went flying in every direction. Great dusty clouds were kicked up by all the kids who rushed in, shoving each other, stepping on little ones and toes, and even grabbing candy from their hands. Micah stood motionless in the center of the swirl as if in the eye of the hurricane. He watched the chaos of the children around him with amazement. Whenever he gently reached for a candy, he spied another child either got there first or snatched it from him. I sat Leah on the ground near Mom and Holly and pushed my way through the craziness, picking up dusty candy along the way. Here, Micah, put these in your pocket. He took the candy from me gratefully, saying thank you in his typical soft and formal voice. Moments later, one of the Wilder kids crashed into him, knocking him to the ground. After a moment of silence, he started to cry. Micah was not the sort to draw attention to himself, and his cries were normally so soft they went ignored, but not that afternoon. With a force that suggested he had been saving up those tears, Micah wailed deeply, ear-splittingly, as if he had been wounded. Micah, please, I said, my eyes searching for Mom. The wailing continued, and with each scream, his pain became a bit more of my own until I found it unbearable. I gathered him up and ran with him in my arms to the side of the house, holding him for a long time as I waited for him to calm down and watched for Mom to come console him. I sat him down against the house and noticed we were both trembling. I struggled with shaky hands to unwrap a candy for him. He wiped his tears away and then unwrapped a candy from myself. You need to stop crying, Micah. I panicked, my heart in my throat. Why? He asked quietly, no longer breathing heavily. Why do you need to stop crying? He nodded. Because I don't know, because the other boys will tease you. But, that kid pushed me down. He hurt me. But it was an accident, Micah. That's all. I turned up my blouse so I could wipe his cheeks with the underside of the fabric. There's just too many kids for this little yard. Micah and I stood up together for a long time. Finally, he seemed to have calmed down. Let's go, I said. He came but slowly. Come on, you're not hurt that bad. I reached for his hand and led him back to the party. Before long, raindrops began to fall. Mom wanted to beat the downpour and get home. She whistled for her brood to help load up the truck. First to arrive after me was Micah, now giggling, his tears a distant memory. Hey, Mom, can Alex and Junior spend the night at our house? He asked, breathless from a game of tag. Mom said she didn't mind since we had room in the truck. Lane was staying at Alejandro's that night, and Matt was off somewhere with Maria. So my three sisters piled into the front seat with Mom as the rain began to fall, and I sat back with the boys. Above the sky seemed a deeper black than usual, and by the time we turned off the highway onto the dirt roads of LeBaron, jagged orange and yellow lightning bolts sliced through the sky and lit up the blue mountains. The rain was torrential. I opened up the hide-a-bed in the living room for the three boys before returning to Mom's room. I tossed and turned to the sound of the storm until I heard all the boys in the living room snoring soundly. I rolled it into Mom's side of the bed against her thick back and at last fell asleep. And that's where we're going to stop it for today. I thought this was going to be really, really bad. The saddest thing to me that happened in this definitely was the horse and her grandpa. It's hard when you lose someone and then to not be able to say goodbye and not to, know and to find out that way and to think you're going to surprise your grandma and she didn't even get to see her grandma. That would have been nice if she got to see her while she was there. Anyways, y'all let me know what you thought about this chapter. As I said, please fill out that poll because I need to make sure that I order the book in time for us to get started, because y'all know I don't like to have too many gaps when it comes to our book readings. Thank you guys so much for joining. Until next time.